All right, I'd like to call to order this work session, December 20th, 2022. Jamie, could you read the sunshine statement, please?
Be advised that proper notice has been given by the Township Council in accordance with the Sunshine Law in the following manner. Notice advertised in the Burlington County Times and Camden Courier Post on March 1st, 2022, and posted on the bulletin board on the same date. Mrs. Apiadu?
Here.
Mr. Smith?
Here.
Mr. Jenny?
Here.
Mr. Lyon?
Here.
Mr. Burrell?
All right, let's get right into the work session. First on the agenda is the Harbor District. I believe it's Mr. Barron.
Yes, it
Is
is.
that correct?
Mr. President,
Okay.
how are you?
Mr. Vice President. The President's
Mr.
not
Vice
here.
President.
Yeah, the President isn't here tonight.
Sometimes Vice
Get the
President-
second fiddle.
Sometimes the Vice President's better than the President. I'll just leave that there. I am Jeff Barron. I'm an attorney admitted to practice in the state of New Jersey. I am representing Winter Sailing Center, Inc. this evening. We're going to talk about, if you permit us, the Riverside Marina. I think that might be how most of you know this in Dredge Harbor. We had the opportunity to meet with the mayor, who we appreciate attended the meeting and appreciate his comments and his continuing, at least answering telephone calls, which is some indication that he must be doing something right, because not every mayor in every town returns telephone calls, but in any event. So we're here this evening, and we appreciate your courtesy to talk about a possible redevelopment plan for Mr. Winter's property.
Sir, excuse me, may I just interrupt you for a minute to create a little bit of a better record?
Sure.
Can you please state your full name?
Jeffrey Barron,
Spell your last name, please.
B-A-R-O-N.
Okay, and for the record, you have in front of the council, which I'm also going to ask you, we have a copy up here.
Yes.
So I'm going to ask you to put the display for the public so they can see that. You're here for an informal presentation, correct, sir?
Yes.
Okay, and you have handed to the council member, and the clerk now has a copy for her files, a draft overall, what's labeled as an overall site plan and a conceptual layout plan, both of which are unsigned and therefore draft documents that the council is going to look at, and that mirrors what is on the board here,
They're
correct?
conceptual plans. That's
Okay.
why they're not signed and formal.
Right, right, and they're not subject to Oprah at that point either.
Correct.
So, thank you.
You're welcome. So, part of my thunder stolen. What you have in front of you are conceptual plans of a layout, as Dave will tell you, our engineer, that would, quote-unquote, work on the site. But I want you to understand that that may not be the plan that we submit, because it would require us going through the procedures with your town professionals to get to a plan that was most acceptable to everyone. So let me start by saying, I know you don't want to spend the whole evening here. We don't want you to. We know there's a holiday. So I'm going to just tell you, we're going to be talking about a redevelopment. I have witnesses that are going to cover each part of that. And then at the end, of course, we're happy to answer any questions, or we're happy to answer any questions after each person testifies. So, Mr. Winter, if you would come up, please. This is Glenn Winter, who is the owner, operator of Winter Sailing, and I guess we should have him sworn.
If you prefer, that's fine.
I think we should, even though it's informal, just so that everybody knows that you can rely on what he says.
Okay, sir, raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Your full name, sir, for the record?
Glenn Martin Winter.
And what is the property address that you are here for? Is that,
74 Norland Avenue, which is Riverside Marina, and 8 Reserve Avenue, which is the Winter Sailing.
okay, thank you.
Mr. Winter, what is your relationship with those two enterprises that you just mentioned? Come up close to the mic so they can pick you up, please.
Well, they were mine. I've put them into my estate planning. They're part of a family limited partnership of which I am the head.
How
So-
long has that entity operated the facilities there?
I came to Delran in 1984. That's when I purchased P. Evanson Boat Company, and we started our boat sales operation there.
And what's the exact nature of the facilities? What actually do you do there?
Well, we're full-service marina. We dock boats in the summer, we store boats in the winter if you need service. We have travel lifts that handle up to 50 tons. And we have indoor storage, outdoor storage. We have a harbor shop. But what pays the bills is we are a sailboat and powerboat dealer, so we sell new and used boats.
What's the current number of employees you have? And would that number be subject to increase if this redevelopment that we're going to talk about were to occur?
The two companies, counting myself, have 16 people. They're depending on how this would play out, we could be another 5 to 10 people to take care of the property with a condo association.
What's the proposed changes to the facility as a result of the proposed renovation? Well, let's talk about two different things. First of all, today, what exists there?
At Riverside, we have a large building on the north side of Norman Avenue. That's where our offices are, indoor storage, a heated service area. On the other side of the street is a building that once was a machine shop. It's pretty well not used at this point. And our marina bathrooms, which are currently falling into the harbor because they've been undermined by a failing bulkhead. So I've had to purchase, for temporary, we have a mobile bathroom unit which has showers and toilets.
Is the problem that you're having as a result of the deterioration of the bulkhead one of the reasons that we're here in front of council?
Oh, yes. It's one of the major ongoing expenses that we're facing at the marina. And the idea of redeveloping to create the residences and generate funds that will help the marina remain. That is my goal. I'm a marina operator and a boat salesperson, not a real estate developer. But developing the real estate will allow these marinas to fund themselves into, I hope, the next century. I don't know that I'll be here for that, but we're working on it.
So if the board felt, that the council felt it was appropriate to authorize the redevelopment, would the goal be to be able to reinvent, so to speak, the marina with new bulkheads and residential residences to some extent, to be able to defer the cost of what has to be done in the marina? And we'll get to dredging in a minute, but to
Yes.
defer those costs?
Yes,
Okay.
the idea would be, currently I've just purchased used docks from the National Marine Manufacturers Association. They gave up their boat shows in Florida, and I've purchased $90,000 worth of used docks that are in pretty good shape that we can replace one of our piers with. Now, those docks new would be about $500,000, and the redoing of that marina to update it totally, we're probably looking at $2.5 to $3 million to do it. And the income from the marina just will not support that at this point.
So let's talk about the dredging of the Rancocas. How frequently does that have to be done, and what kind of an expense is that?
Well, in 2000, which was the first time I dredged the harbor, we purchased a dredge for $250,000, and it's still operating. The permitting to dredge costs, well, at one time it was $100,000. We just completed a new set of permits, and between the engineering and the fees to the state, before we dig one bucket of mud was $150,000. So we do have a new 5-year permit, and the dredge is operating. It didn't run today, but it's been running the last couple weeks.
Does that have to basically operate every year? Not all year, but every year?
Well, I'll explain. What we have out there is silt, and I'm sure you've all been to the beach. If you ever stand in the water near the sand and you rub your feet in the sand, you create a nice little footprint, and then the wave washes over it, and the sand fills right back in. And that's basically what happens with the silt in the harbor. So we dig it out. We're fortunate that we have a disposal site on Amico Island. If we didn't have that, we'd be done. But the county has maintained that site, and so far, we've been able to put our spoils in that.
Have any other boating operations contributed to the dredging of Dredge Harbor in the past?
We cooperate with Bill Parsons over in Dredge Harbor, but he runs a separate operation. He's digging a different channel to the river, but we share the use of the disposal site. At one time, Clark's helped with the expenses, but they've shut down their marina. So that's one of two marinas. The Philadelphia Marine Center shut down 2 years ago. So we've lost two big marinas on the Delaware River. I hope to keep my two going.
Do you have any estimate of what it would cost to do the improvements and to maintain the dredging of the facility?
Well, we need new bulkheads. We replaced, after Superstorm Sandy, we had a wooden bulkhead, and that just collapsed completely. So we have 200 feet of new steel bulkhead. Then about a year and a half ago, I got a call that the bulkhead along A dock, the tiebacks had let go and the bulkhead pitched forward. Now we were able, it was a unique experience, we were able to excavate behind that and actually pull the steel back into place. Now how long that's going to hold, I don't know, but the rest of the steel is of the same age, and we can expect that to all let go at some point.
So the council understands, the problem that you're facing is that the difficulty that brings the silt, as you described it, in on an annual basis is going to continue. There's no way to stop that.
It's an ongoing event. We will be dredging as long as we want to keep that harbor open.
Okay, so, and that's what I wanted to get to. So to keep open, you have to dredge. To dredge, you have to pay for the dredging. Two of the companies that previously contributed to that are not operating.
But one, Philadelphia Marine Center wasn't in our harbor.
Okay, so one of them, Clark's, is gone.
Right.
And so it leaves the other two there, and as you lose people to contribute, it becomes more and more unviable to be able to continue the operation. You need to replace the bulkheads, and that would involve putting steel bulkheads, we'll hear that in a minute from Mr. McKee, in front of the wooden bulkheads. And that, in your opinion, would enable you to continue to operate because it would enable you to also construct some residential units, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. And without that, could you still operate?
Well, we could operate our boat sales operation indefinitely. I mean, even if we let the whole harbor fill in, we have an 8-foot tidal range, so I could get boats out of the harbor, I could continue to sell them, but nobody would want to keep a boat there anymore, so the marina would just go away. So I don't want that to happen. We want to keep the marina going. It's part of what we do,
And is the proposal that we're going to make to the council include both residential and some commercial?
Well, we would stay commercial, and the harbor shop would still be there, and there could be some other commercial there.
Okay. I think that gives the council a pretty good picture of what
Yeah,
we're
we
talking about.
we see that you want to redevelop to support the other business and whatnot, so.
Correct.
And while this is, obviously this isn't the planning or zoning board, we don't need a full application with testimony or whatnot.
And
But yeah,
that's
we
really
get
what
it.
we wanted to get across from Glenn, from Mr. Winters, the
Yep.
dire position he finds himself in. Well, you could sit down
Okay.
if they want you to come
Thank
back.
you.
You will. Chuck, where are you? Come on up. This is Chuck McKee. Chuck, would you introduce yourself to the committee and also explain to them what your business is, please?
Members of the council, Mr. Mayor. My name is Charles McKee. I own a company called Deep Star Marine Incorporated, based out of Camden, New Jersey. It's a heavy marine construction and dredging company, and we've been in business for 30 years. I've done work in this area at most of all the marinas in Delran, Riverside. I'm Mr. Winters' marine contractor. I replaced some bulkheads for Mr. Winters, and I intimately know the condition of his bulkhead situation now.
How long have you been working on it with Mr. Winters, Chuck?
I'm going to say the last maybe 5 to 6 years.
Okay. Have you done similar repairs and replacements of bulkheads in other facilities? Oh, I should have told you to turn your phone on.
Yes. Sorry.
Turn your phone on. So can you tell us, somewhat specifically, what has to be done at the marina to be able to keep it viable?
I'm sorry. Okay, I think I got it. I'm sorry. The condition at Riverside is almost any steel bulkhead. When it was built, they deteriorate at the mud line. The metal gets in contact with the water, and the conditions at Delran, similar to Riverside, as Mr. Winters has testified, he has an 8-foot tidal rise and fall. You don't have that down the shore, but you have it on the Delaware River. That means the bulkheads have to be substantially built and anchored back because they have to hold all that land back. What's happening along with the bulkheads deteriorating, because I believe that they're about 75 years or older. What we're finding right now is the tie rod systems that would hold them up, they were built prior that they had any building codes in the state of New Jersey, so they were uncoated wire. They reached their serviceable life and they're snapping. You could actually hear them snapping when the A-dock was breaking. So these bulkheads were let loose. So they're in dire need of being repaired right now.
Tell us what the repair would entail. What would be done to fix this problem?
You would have to put a new steel bulkhead, and they provide this by law. We can put it in 18 inches in front of the old bulkhead before the old bulkheads fall down. And then you would have a new steel bulkhead, which would support the weight of any improvements in the land. And I would say that would give the life expectancy of this marina at least 100 years.
So can you backfill behind the new bulkhead?
Yes, you can.
So you actually have a little more land as well as more stability?
Yes, and the law provides for that, 18 inches.
And you work with Mr. Winter on this proposal, and in essence, he would like to move forward if he had the necessary approval.
I brought this idea to Mr. Winters, because I worked on similar projects in this state. Marinas themselves, when you have a guy that takes over a marina and he's relying on boat slip rentals, the rentals that they bring in for the boat slip does not really cover the maintenance on the marinas. They're becoming a dying thing. And this is why you see these marinas disappearing all over the state. I am involved in another project in Riverside at Lightning Jacks Marina. The township's behind us 100%. We're gonna try to put 80 units in there, and that's gonna save that marina.
80 units residential.
Residential, correct. And doing this, it allows for the building of it with no expense to the taxpayers. It's all done with private money, and it makes it viable. And at the end, the township enjoys an additional tax revenue from the units.
We're going to talk about it in a while. Thanks, Chuck, I appreciate it. He's
Thank
going to
you.
be available again.
Thank you,
for
members of the
questions.
council, Your Honor.
David Fleming, please. Dave,
Good evening. How you doing?
who are you, who are you employed by, and what licenses do you have?
My name is David Fleming. I'm a professional engineer for the last 35 years, and I work with Marathon Engineering.
Okay, and just by happenstance, you've done these projects before.
I've
haven't
done a
you?
lot of waterfront development work in the state of New Jersey, in Camden, ports everywhere, dozens of projects, yes.
Okay. Let's talk about the conceptual plan, the council, if we might, I'm gonna reference it as Exhibit A, and we don't have to necessarily mark the ones we've handed out, but we will, I think, we're gonna have them marked in a minute.
Overall, the overall plan, the marina, that's overall right there.
Right, we'll call that exhibit A.
It was on A, and then the conceptual massing sketch.
Could you just move this so they can see that any of the
The problem's really the light. There we go, that, the light's a little better.
The council sort of has to see where
Yeah.
you're pointing,
Yeah.
so they can look at what
So the
they're-
top one is the overall site plan,
Overall.
and the bottom one is the massing.
Yeah, and the overall shows the entirety of Mr. Winter's holdings, all the marine property. The conceptual massing plan, is mostly a blow-up of the area of the current marina that we would propose for the residential component. That would also allow, that residential component would also, in accordance with, New Jersey waterfront development and flood hazard area regulations, allow access along the waterfront, preserve the marina access or any other waterfront development access that the public can enjoy. So,
Dave, let's talk about what the plan, and it is conceptual, but
Yes.
what the plan shows, and I'm gonna ask you what would have to be done to bring that plan to fruition.
okay, so again, I refer to it as a conceptual massing plan because it gives at least a picture of what the land may hold. The portion of the land where we show marina has to have a few things. It has to have access to the water, according to the regulations. It has to have, the buildings themselves set back sufficient distance from the water and some other setbacks, and any other zoning provision that this board, the town may come up with. It also needs parking for both the residential uses and the marina. And so this plan, a massing plan, provides an opportunity to show, in this particular concept would be condo-style units, 1, 2 bedroom. I'm not exactly sure what they would be, but we presume 2 bedroom because that generates more of a parking demand, so that this plan was, show the surface parking. This concept would show buildings up to 50 feet high, I believe 3 levels of condo units. The lower floor would be a mix of potentially sub-building parking and potentially, the potential use for some limited ground floor, retail use, so some commercial level that may make sense in this kind of setting. That's it, and this plan, you can see, shows three buildings, again, as a massing level, just to distribute the parking throughout the site and provide, actually great views of water.
And Mr. Winter had some let's say, requirements that he wanted imposed on the plan. One was, he wanted to be able to keep the equipment that would put the boats into the water.
That's correct.
He wanted to have parking for his patrons as well as
That's correct.
people in the residential. And this plan, again, it's a conceptual plan, but this plan would provide that, correct?
That's correct, and in addition to, Mr. Winter's desires and any kind of zoning provisions, the town may also has to satisfy New Jersey waterfront development regulations and all those policies one of the driving forces of the New Jersey waterfront development regulations is to preserve access to the water, public access to water-dependent uses. That's what those regulations promote. Also, they promote, in addition, other DEP policies, the Flood Hazard Act and all the other stormwater provisions that you need to do in a modern redevelopment of a site like this.
And there is a required number of parking spaces that are imposed by the zoning ordinances if this were to be a redevelopment.
Right.
And those have to be provided as well as the commercial. So the design is a function of a number of different factors pressing on what has to be done to be able to bring this about, correct?
That's correct. And again, keep in mind, these are just, at this point in time, boxes. They're not architectural rendered beautiful buildings, which Mr. Winters actually prefers. We talked about that a lot. But this plan represents a massing concept. Numbers of potential units, numbers of parking, the circulation, and that plan you see shows not only circulation around the building, but also circulation on the water, and that would be part of a public access plan that would actually have to be part of any kind of waterfront development permit that may come later.
So if you don't mind just pointing out, in these buildings, where is the parking located to service the buildings and if there were residential units?
On the schedule, the parking is grayed out, if you will, and in just, I think you'll see that, obviously you'll recognize the striping of the proposed parking. But on this concept, and again, this is a concept, and we've worked with other developers that have done this, it wouldn't have a garage type setting, but it might have garage type doors where some of the parking could face the parking field in an attempt to utilize the land in an efficient way. Again, that's not a parking deck per se, it's surface parking, almost like your driveway. We've seen some of that, and again, that's a function of an architectural design, which I'm certainly not here to give all the different options that exist, but it would represent a potential opportunity.
And that's what I was just going to say. Are there potential opportunities for pedestrian circulation in this plan as well?
And again, I think if you look at the plan, along the waterway, and I think on all the exhibits, there's a brownish paint colors that represent pedestrian walkways, designated pedestrian walkways. And they would serve not only the docks, but again, when you redevelop or any type of permit that would require, any type of permit require waterfront development permit in the state of New Jersey, and I think many board probably are aware that public access is a big deal. And it's a big topic when you go ahead and do it. It's probably one of the most talked about topics you have. Some of the other ones are very technical, and we're able to group those who are. Public access becomes one of the top two topics in any kind of waterfront development application. We think this one, given the nature of the marina, this already lends itself to providing great public access.
Dave, you talked about the height of these buildings. Can you tell council what is the approved height in zoning right now for the residential units that are in the area of this?
And I forget, and I have to look at the chart.
I think it'll be 35 feet.
Yeah, I believe that it is. It's not actually on this particular exhibit. I believe it's 35. This diagram shows 50.
I don't think we need the
Kind
innate
of
details of everything, because we're not planning and
I
zoning
just
right
wanted
here.
to give you an
Yeah.
idea of how it
Yeah.
would fit in with this around here.
Again, it wouldn't be, a tower like you see on the Pennsylvania side. New Jersey, urban development regulations don't allow that.
Right.
So.
I think we get the concept of what you're putting forth through what you handed out, what you have up there, yes.
How long would it take, in your estimation, to complete a project like this?
Well, of course, this would require a redevelopment planning process.
Let's talk about construction. The redevelopment plan, development is done hopefully in concert between the applicant and the town, so that goes as fast as government goes. But
Yeah,
how
yeah.
about the actual construction?
Well, the construction, again, depending upon the phasing of this, could be a multi-year build-out, of course.
Okay. Any impact on the surrounding area and residents other than what's obvious here?
But, again, there are obvious zoning things. We do have some residential areas across the street, over a lot of buildings are in front of, Mr. Land's. But there are a few corridors, so I think, given the nature of what this proposal is, from my view, it's pretty de minimis.
Well, it's my turn. My function is, although I rarely do this, is sort of to become a witness to explain to you what we believe the benefits are to Delran Township from this project. You clearly now know what the benefits would be to us. The question is, quote, what do we get out of this? Well, first of all, you get newer and more improved facilities for boating and boating operations, which we believe will attract more folks to this marina, because it'll be one of the few in this area that would be newer. There would be residential units with views of and access to the Rancocas Creek. That's another attraction, and of course, it builds population, which in most cases builds a tax base for the town, and therefore it's a benefit. This is a potential year-round activity at this site. Even though boating may or may not be a year-round function, folks would be able to come to their residences. They would be able to look out on the Rancocas and potentially Delaware, if they can see that far. The increased revenues from the residential units, I think, is pretty obvious. There's also the newer facilities which would be created, and that's a source of revenue as well. And it would improve and continue the operation of the Riverside Marina going forward. That's mostly benefits to us. So what are your benefits? Well, the increased real estate revenues from the improvements that we've talked about, the increased real estate tax revenues from the new buildings. So you have the buildings that are there, which would be improved, that would generate new valuations for those buildings, and then you would have the new residential buildings. Even though that's for the most part needed for us to be able to maintain the facility, the tax revenue goes to the town. So that's, I think, a substantial benefit for the town. And it's a generation of a new type of activity at the waterfront. It's residential condominiums, some retail facilities. We talked about a possible restaurant. We have to do a demographic study to see if it's warranted, but it may very well be warranted for the people that will be there, whether they're permanent or seasonal residents. And a refurbishment, and Mr. Winter firmly believes this, a refurbishment and upgrade of the structures in the harbor area may lead to the refurbishment, repair, and additional investment in both commercial and residential uses in the area. This area is certainly not old, but it has some age to it, and by accomplishing these, you incentivize other folks to do it, and you incentivize lenders, because as some of you may or may not know, sometimes it's hard to get a lender to buy into a concept, but if someone is doing it and it's successful, then it becomes a concept that other people want to emulate. So what would it cost you? Cost? Nothing. We would probably ask for a 5-year tax abatement during the construction. And if you're not familiar with an abatement, it's not a pilot. And most people who come in to pitch these to the towns say, we'd like a pilot program. And a pilot program can go up to 30 years. It is a payment in lieu of taxes, and it is a structured payment so that the taxes for the municipality goes down and the revenue goes up. For the county, sort of the same effect. it's the school district in most of these pilots that have some concern about it. Well, in this case, we don't see a whole lot of kids coming here. I mean, if it's a seasonal situation, they're not going to be residents on your school rolls. If it isn't seasonal, there are going to be very few children that are going to live here full time. As Glenn said, they're two-bedroom condominium units. They're not that large. They're intended really to be places for folks to come, either be close to the boats they have or be able to enjoy what's going on the Rancocas. And so that would work. The 5-year tax abatement works very simply. The first year, you don't pay taxes. The second year, you pay 20. Next year, 40. The next year, 60. Next year, 80. And in the final year, it goes to full tax assessment. What it does is it gives the person building a little bit of a respite from having to pay the heavy taxes they would pay on something that they can't do anything with because it isn't fully built. And that's worked out between your financial staff and the applicant, and it has worked and does work in other towns. And finally, in your most recent master plan review, and I'm happy to see Mr. Dockney's here, not just because Chris and I are sort of friendly in terms of knowing each other for a while, but because he's one of the planners in the area that really knows a lot about what we're talking about in terms of redevelopment. It creates an opportunity of a joint venture between the town and one of the developers in the town to create something that benefits both parties. Usually it just benefits one, doesn't benefit the other. So you get Dredge Harbor dredged, you get that boating operation to be able to continue. You get new residential units, you get the taxes. I'm not going to go over what I've already said, although you're probably saying, well, you're going over what you already said already. In any event, that's our proposal. What we would be asking council to do is to consider an ordinance, probably a resolution, directing the planning board to undertake a redevelopment study for the site to see if it is an area in need of redevelopment. In the old days, we used to call it, well, I won't even tell you what we used to call it, because the law doesn't call it that anymore. It was dilapidated, there were a lot of negative terms for it. Today, it's just an area in need of redevelopment. The state statute sets out those standards. If it would be determined to be an area in redevelopment by the planning board, submitted to you, and you upheld that, then it would move to a redevelopment plan. And the redevelopment plan would be, in essence, a mini zoning. It creates a overlay zone that can be utilized in addition to the underlying zone. The underlying zone could still exist, and you could still go ahead and do what it permits, but it would give you the option to invoke the overlay if you wanted to. We would be responsible for that cost. The applicant would be responsible to pay for the professionals that the town would engage to have this happen. We're not asking you to do this on your dime. We would be willing to do that. There'll be some limit. I mean, I like all these guys, but I don't want to make them rich. So there'd be some limit, but it would be a reasonable limit. It would be what it normally costs. Any questions, anything more information we can give you? That's why we're here.
Council, I mean, I'm good. I see the plan and what you're trying to accomplish.
I appreciate that.
Lina, I think that's the information question that I know you Oh, sorry. Sir, just looking at Exhibit A, the overall site plan, on the left side, on the opposite side of Norman Avenue, you have something labeled as a potential parking lot.
Yes.
Is that property owned by your client yet?
Yes.
Okay. What is the yellow line representing? Because it leaves out a whole section. Is the yellow line your client's property line? The yellow bordering line
Oh, that's
on A.
That's the property. That's the end of the property.
Okay, so then in the middle of Norman Avenue, there's a whole bunch of buildings with boats. That's not your client's property? In the middle?
right across from Building A.
Well, right here, when you look at this, doesn't show it. You mean in here with the... Okay, so that's another hooking up or we don't own that, we don't own that. We look at that, we have that.
Right, so this is not your client's property, so you have not taken any with him anything about the development for his property. Is that the accurate? That's okay, you don't have to answer that.
We're not in discussion yet.
Yeah.
We will.
Well, of course, I'm sure Mr. Barron is aware, and my firm and myself have done a lot of waterfront development, mainly in northern New Jersey, where the DEP requires waterfront parks and walkways for the public. So it's difficult to say the municipality would only look at a redevelopment plan solely for your client's property, particularly when there is a smack dab in the middle piece of property that may qualify under the law and should also be designated in the area, even though it may not be part of your plan.
I don't disagree with that, but we can't entertain conversations with another property owner until we know that the council looks favorably at our operation.
Okay.
Because what would we say to them? We may
Right.
get an approval and you may be part of it and, you know.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Right.
You're not asking the council to entertain any eminent domain
No.
powers
No, we
at all,
absolutely
correct?
not.
Okay. The R2 districts that you show here, are they fairly developed out, or is there a lot of blank infill in there that might have to be considered or should be considered for the overlay?
Yeah, it's okay to split the, if you look at the overall map, you know, I must admit I haven't studied every tax line that exists between that.
Yeah.
But it gives the character of the valley, and maybe some of those lots,
Yeah.
and a lot of those developments where some of the other multiple lots that they built on, maybe not even satisfied.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And I would represent to you, because I've done a good share of this myself, the further you get from the water, the less likely to include in a redevelopment.
Right.
Because if people have to walk unless you're at the beach and in the shore communities, the longer people have to walk, the less inclined they are to want to do it.
Yeah.
So, you know, we looked at, and I completely agree with Council's comment, the one that's in the middle would seem to fit. And let me just say that you can decide to include that in a redevelopment. And all that would happen would be, it would be an area, if appropriate, to be designated in a needs study, and then it would get zoning. But it doesn't have to develop that way. As I said, the underlying zoning will remain. They can do what they're doing today. Or,
Yeah, that's for down the road, yeah.
right, or they could take the availability of what we're asking to do and come in along with us
Right.
and try to develop.
And the council may, at some point, and your CME is highly experienced in all of this stuff as well, but at some point, you may also want to think about the, around the corner, still on the water, where that other marina is.
Yeah, and that's for down the road.
Yeah, but it does help with the designation in case there would be a challenge to not limit it to just one property owner.
It's sort of
The
like
only other
spot
question
zoning.
I have is, what are these circular things at, looks like on Rancocas, on River Drive? What are those?
always
So that's the sewer plant.
Oh,
That's the
that's
sewer
what you were talking with me about today, right?
That's the sewer
Okay.
plant.
Okay, that's what I thought.
The dredge spoils that you heard about are back here.
No.
They're
We can see it on what we have in front of us.
at here.
Yeah.
That's where the,
This is the sewer.
right, okay. And that's where the dredged dredged materials go, over on Amico Island, so far. Amica, okay. All right, thank you.
It is. We have the central plant.
All right, well, thank you for your oh, go ahead.
Mr. Barron, the property that's outside of your property,
Yes.
does that currently have access for the water?
the other properties, they have no access.
Is it a boating operation? Is it a boat building operation? What is that?
The one right next to Riverside,
Why don't you come up to the map, so we all are talking about the same thing? This is exhibit
You have to
A.
speak into a microphone or it doesn't go for the record.
This is Cherubini here. At the current time, it's pretty dormant. They really haven't worked there in the past 6 months to a year. And the property, if we had approvals to do something, that property would be valuable to me. And I would certainly get into discussions. But for that by itself, it would never be able to meet the restrictions that we have at the state level to do anything with it. So it would loosen my plan up and have some value to him to sell it to me. But I haven't offered it yet because.
And we didn't bring that up, council, because we didn't want to get Mr. Cherubini all excited and think that, he just hit a windfall.
Yeah.
But my question is, does Mr. Cherubini currently have access to water?
No, none of these properties have water access. We go all the way.
So it's not a marina?
Pardon me?
That business operation is not a marina then?
No, it's
The boat
it's
building
a-
or maintenance?
lot, but no water access.
All right, thank you.
I will say, I've always had public access to the water. We don't lock the gates at night. People have always been welcome. We have fishing areas, and as I've talked to Dave Fleming, I've made a point. I said, we have to have an attractive public area on the waterfront. And of course, we have Amico Island right next to us, which is a great county park. So I think we complement that quite a bit.
We would, we're on our way out, I promise. We would ask you to consider this in a timely manner, if that's possible, because Mr. Winters lost 2 seasons, in essence, because of the pandemic, and of course, the way meetings have been skewed, and we haven't been able to do things the way we always used to. So we would like to get started if council shares the same vision that he has and it makes sense to you. I would tell you that at any point, both sides have the right to pull the plug, because if we don't contribute the money, that it doesn't happen. And if you decide that you don't like the idea and don't adopt the zoning plan, well, then it isn't going to happen. But we would like to work, as I said, in concert with you cooperatively and see if we could do something to save the harbor. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a pleasant holiday. We appreciate the opportunity to
Thank
talk to
you.
you.
Now, we're going to go right to the, you need to go? We're going to move on to the next piece, which is the electric vehicle ordinance. I think we have Chris.
Yes, we do. Mr. Vice President, we invited Chris, our planner, here today. If you recall, I think it was back in the September, October council meeting, the Green Team made a proposal to adopt the electric vehicle ordinance, and I think Chris is just going to give us a quick summary and what next steps look like in moving this along, if you don't mind.
Just state your name for the record,
For those of you
please.
who don't know, I'm Chris Donkney from CME. I am currently the planning board planner, I guess, as well, along with CME as the town engineer, the township planner. So what this quite simply is taking an existing state ordinance that was put into place, I believe, in spring of last year to require for all projects going forward that electric vehicle charging stations be put into larger multifamily projects, commercial places, public parking lots. It's taking that new state law, which is already applies anyway, and codifying it into your own township ordinance so that it is in the appropriate sections of the township code. And that is really all this is. So it's not, does not actually change anything because it already applies as state law anyway, but it's putting it into Delran's code.
So, Joe, we don't need to do anything right now, or we do it for the future?
No,
to get,
No, not at all. So I think maybe just talk about what the next steps are, here, planning board
The
back
steps
here.
are, it gets introduced as an ordinance, then it's referred to the planning board since it does technically amend the zoning code. The planning board will review it for consistency with the master plan. I believe the master plan re-exam did mention this, so it should be perfectly consistent with the master plan, then it comes back to you as the council where you can adopt it as an ordinance. So it's essentially a 6-week process there, depending on the scheduling of the meetings. But I think we could easily anticipate this could be introduced by the council in January, and at the February planning board meeting, they would review, and then later in February, you could adopt as the council.
perfect. Any questions?
Chris, is there anything that we need to add to be more specific or to make it more Delran focused?
Not necessarily. There are a few items that where the state model legislation left sort of a fill in the blank, but the only places there were to designate who at the township would be responsible for overseeing, say, construction permitting and other electric vehicle provisions. But other than that, really, the state law applies, and to a large degree, you're not allowed to change it. It even says in the model ordinance, you cannot change, it's like a 12-page ordinance. I think after page 2, it says you cannot change anything after this. So for the most part, it's almost like the residential site improvement standards of that street widths have to be a certain way, parking spaces have to be a certain size, pavement widths have to be, or thickness has to be a certain way. It's the state law, it applies statewide. So even if you wanted to, you couldn't really change it. You could, I suppose, if you really wanted to as a town, put in stricter restrictions, greater requirements for more electric vehicle parking if you so wished. But this is the state law that is going to apply whether you do anything or not.
Anything else? Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. All right, next up is the Solar Landscape Initiative, and I think, Joe, you're up on that one.
Yeah, I guess some time ago, even before I got here, there was a presentation made to you, thank you, for this. And I provided a summary in your packets. I just really wanted to alert you that there's going to be a public meeting on this on Monday, January 9th, here in the building. I just wanted to convey that. We have posted it, or will be posting it onto the website very soon. So that was all, Mr. President.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. All right, moving along, we have ordinance on second reading, ordinance 2022-20, which is a bond ordinance authorizing the undertaking of various roadway improvements in and for the township of Delran, appropriating the sum of $325,000. Therefore, authoring the issuance of general obligation bonds or bond anticipation notes of the township of Delran, county of Burlington, New Jersey, in the aggregate principal amount not to exceed $308,750, making certain determination and covenants and authorizing certain related actions in connection with the foregoing. This is on second reading, so we need to have a public hearing portion of this. So can I get a motion to go into public, please?
I make a motion.
Second.
All in favor, roll.
You can do all in favor.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, so we're in public right now for this ordinance and this ordinance only on second reading. So anyone from the public that wishes to speak on this, please raise your hand, you'll be recognized. Seeing none, I will take a motion to come out of public, please.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So moved. Okay, now we need a motion to adopt the ordinance, please. Can I get a motion to adopt ordinance 2022-20, please?
Motion.
Second.
Jamie, call a roll, please.
Mrs. Epeyadu?
Aye.
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Jenny?
Aye.
Mr. Lyon?
Aye. Ayes have it. Okay, the next item is right at this time, with our RFPs that went out, council has decided to reject all the bids as we wish to put out for a more rounded and all-encompassing RFP to save money and create efficiencies. Anne Marie, you want to touch on that shortly, please?
So, the township went out for bid for various, public, contracts, attorneys, different types of attorneys, et cetera. It's my understanding that you want to try and combine and maximize services with one RFP versus having 4 or 5 different lawyers. Certainly, you can reject all bids. That, I'm sure it says it in your paperwork already, and you are permitted to revise and renotice and go back out to bid for any type of service that you want and in any mechanism. We will assist Jamie in drafting the RFPs that the council wants. So at this time, all you need is really just a roll call motion. You don't need to do a resolution that, you need a motion to reject all bids in the current RFPs and to authorize re-advertising for new RFPs, and that's what would happen.
Mr. Vice President?
Yes.
Yes, just a quick point of clarity. This is simply for township solicitor and some of the other attorney positions. It's not all the bids, it's just a very finite set of bids that will be rejected.
That's fine.
I don't think we said
Yes.
what it was for. I didn't want everybody to think that we were throwing out all the bids.
Correct. All right, so I need a motion to reject the bids that have been submitted for the attorney solicitor positions.
Motion?
I'll second.
Roll call?
We doing roll call?
Or,
No, you can do, all in favor?
okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, moving on to the consent agenda.
Well, wait, you need that second part, authorizing the township clerk to
sorry.
rebid the selected attorney positions.
So we can just do another
Yep,
motion?
you can just do another motion and,
Okay.
and,
So we need another motion to put out new bids and get them resubmitted so people can respond to them. Can I get a motion, please?
Motion? I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. All right, consent agenda. This would be for, in our documents here, we have consent agenda resolutions 2022-219 down to 2022-227, plus items J, K, and L there. Any questions from council on the consent agenda? Hearing none, can I get a motion to?
Mr. Chair, if I just might,
Sure.
with respect to resolution, A, letter A, 2022-219.
Sure.
That was a bid that we received the bids on Friday. On Monday, they were given to me by CME, and I worked with CME's group to look through the bids. They issued their letter approving, and I reviewed, and also, I didn't do the letter yet, but I'm approving from a legal perspective the low bid that you're doing here. And I will do my letter and submit it to the clerk for record keeping for the CFO. But we did do our legal part to make sure that was done properly.
Thank you for that clarification.
Thank you.
So we can go to getting a motion to approve the consent agenda, please?
Motion?
Second?
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Apiadu?
Aye.
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Jenny?
Aye.
Mr. Lyon?
Aye. All right, the ayes have it. Next, we will have our reports. First up would be Township Administrator, Mr. Joseph Molina, please.
No report this evening, Mr. President.
Thank you, Joe. Next, Jamie.
No, I have no report, thank you.
Thank you, Jamie. Next up, we have the mayor, Gary Katchenbaum, please.
Thank you, Council Vice President. Really just wanted to tell everyone the best of holidays coming up, whether you celebrate Hanukkah or next week Kwanzaa or Christmas. It's great to see the town coming together during this season and enjoying one another and their families. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Next up, Solicitor Anne Marie.
No report.
Thank you. Next, we have our engineer, Ed Diarmento.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. One thing I just want to touch upon is we had received no bids for both of the times we advertised the Route 130 sewer lining. So our office is in the process of evaluating, breaking it out into two separate projects and rebidding it as soon as possible.
Okay, thank you. All right, we'll go council. To my far right, Nikki.
Just wishing everybody a wonderful holiday, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, happy holidays. That's it.
Thank you. Next up, Marla.
Yes, this as well, just wanted to, echo those sentiments. Happy holidays to everyone. Be safe and during this holiday season, and especially around New Year's. Just also a quick reminder that school will be getting out this Friday, and the students won't be returning until after the New Year. So you may see more students, and walking around, biking around, skating. So as you're driving around, just be cognizant and careful as you're sharing the road with some students, I'm sure. So that's in the report.
Thank you very much. Councilman Jennings.
Thank you, Council Vice President. I just echo the same sentiments as our other council members. Wishes for a healthy, happy New Year and a very pleasant holiday season to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. And just my report echo the same thing. Have a happy, whatever you celebrate, Merry Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa. Don't want to leave anybody out, but enjoy the season with your family and friends. Winterfest was a good time. It was nice to see such a large showing by the community. Really was a nice event. And other than that, everybody stay safe and have a great new year. All right, we're going to move on to public comment. Just before we go into public, we have the rules of decorum. If you wish to speak, raise your hand and you'll be recognized. At that time, you may approach the podium microphone, state your name and address for the record. All remarks shall be through the council president. An individual speaker shall be allotted 5 minutes. All statements are part of the public record, both written and video recorded, and cannot be redacted. Can I get a motion to go into public, please?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. We're now in public. Anyone who wishes to speak, please raise your hand and be recognized to come up to the podium, sir.
How you doing, folks? Just want to let you know your YouTube, if you watch a YouTube video, it is...
Could you state your name for the record,
and
please?
can you turn this on? I don't think this mic is on. Is it on?
It's recording.
Okay.
For recording.
The YouTube video, if you watch it, there's a real bad buzz. I mean, you can hardly hear anything on your live video or any of your videos that have been recording except for the Zoom videos. So something's going on with the system here where there's feedback. So anybody watching on YouTube really can't watch too well. Well, that was surprising. I'm going to make a prediction here. The Swami of Salami here, the predictor of Delran politics, is going to predict that the Wiener Law Group gets all of the bids for the new one-bid law bid that you're putting together. That seems odd. So you usually have a bid for the planning board, right? One for the zoning board, one for council. Is what's happening, is all of those legal services being put under one bid?
No.
So there's still going to be separate bids for each?
Yes, you heard the mayor say there are certain legal services that the council wants. Certain legal services that the council wants to consolidate for cost savings. Not all of them. The planning board and the zoning board are separate attorneys. They're separate entities from the township, even though they're part of the township.
What's going to be consolidated? What's different?
There are different things, and the working out of that is going to happen in the next week or two. And then they will be released by public notice, so I'm sure you'll be able to find them.
And so, I mean, I came here, I actually brought Jamie some paperwork, some lawsuits defamation lawsuits, but it seems that the township attorney is not recognizing such. So I brought some more here that I'm going to have Barbara serve on everybody. These are filed with the court. For some reason, when I print it out, it doesn't show the court printout on the top of it. I printed it like 3 different times.
So, sir, the township was served, the mayor was served, and Councilman Jenny was served.
Great.
I don't know where you got the idea that we're not accepting them.
Well, it's...
The clerk received your paperwork, and it will be processed in the normal course of business.
And that being said, during
There is no need for any further service.
Yeah, no, great. During the conversation, though, with the Wiener Law Group and Delran's administrator, and I can also added the person from the JIF, Paul Florenza. And I've been threatened with a defamation lawsuit by Delran Township for saying what is very clear, that the township defrauded the JIF in the Dunphy litigation. They defrauded the taxpayers. You read into the record a statement that was never printed online. The township says all statements are printed online. The statement that was read into the record, the minutes just say, statement read into the record. It doesn't say anything about the RICO violations or anything else that was being charged, or the $300,000 that was paid with taxpayers' finances. The JIF says they were notified first on March 12th of 2021 about the Dunphy litigation. The Delran Council had been in January session and in a February session discussed such litigation, discussed the settlement litigation that the solicitor at the time, who resigned duly because he knew he could not explain the JIF notification timeline, told the JIF that the first time that they were notified about the lawsuit was March 12th of 2021, which couldn't be further from the truth. I have emails showing it, just with the solicitor and the mayor alone, leaving the council president out, who, by the way, I believe the council president has been pushed out of his vice chair position in the Delran Democratic Committee because he decided to stand up against the mayor. So I do want to say, and what can I ask, Mayor? I saw on Facebook you got a brand new boat. You docking your boat over at Winters?
I don't think where I keep my personal property has anything to do with you.
I'm just wondering if that whole boat, building all the buildings on the river came, the idea from you having your boat over there, and maybe you maybe get a free slip, you know? Thank you very much.
Are you accusing me?
All right, thank you. Anyone else from the public like to be recognized? Ma'am, please come on up, state your name and address for the record, please.
Barb Littleton, have a residence here in Delran. Can everyone hear me? Okay, thank you. Mayor, just have a question. I know when you first took over, you had talked about doing monthly meetings with the residents. Whatever happened with that?
I'm sorry.
I know when you first took over as mayor, when you
Yeah.
were campaigning, you were talking about doing monthly meetings with the residents and,
Correct.
and having those. Whatever happened with those? Because I haven't heard anything about those.
Well, there was other things that became more pressing.
Is there a
We'll do it.
chance that
That's all
those could possibly take front and center, and maybe we could start having some conversations? Because I think having those conversations might help with a lot of the stuff that's going on.
I appreciate your input. Thank you.
Yeah, because I'm really getting frustrated. I mean, the whole lawsuit thing, I just want it done and over with and behind us, and hopefully that gets done, and everybody comes out and gets that taken care of, and whatever happens. And hopefully this has been reported to the JIF, and if the JIF can cover it, the JIF can cover it, but definitely want it done and taken care of and move forward with it. But want to come out and say that, this whole veterans thing is another area where we could do a little bit better in communication and maybe bringing people into, maybe not making it more about the council and making it more about a community effort. Because I think that also will help with the communications and bring the council back into maybe some good graces with the community. I know Bob Gilbert is the first one who brought up the whole veterans. No, he was. And I mean, it's out there on the video. He was. He was the first one to bring it up before anyone else brought it up. He brought it to the council's attention way before anyone else. And yet no one wants to give him any credit. And I think this is a good time. That would have been a great time to say, hey, you know, Bob brought this up to our attention. Let's bring him in when we get this award and give him a little bit of the credit. Let the people know that he brought this up to our attention. But no, and regardless of anyone's Republican, Democrat, it doesn't matter. We're all citizens of Delran. We all live here. We all want to make this a great place to live. And I thought that's what the council was about, putting politics aside. But I don't see a lot of politics going aside. I mean, I see a lot of, I hear the rumors, you know, Barb Littleton's part of that posse. No, I'm not. Barb Littleton is about Barb Littleton. Barb Littleton is independent of everyone else. I might agree with Pat sometimes. I might agree with Lynn sometimes. I might agree with the mayor sometimes, and I do. So please don't think I don't agree with you guys. But when I don't agree with you guys, I bring it to your attention, and I'm not afraid to tell you. And I'm going to tell you, there's people out there afraid to tell you, and that's wrong. And I think a lot of you do that to those people out there, and you should be ashamed of yourself for that. Those people should not be ashamed of making you feel bad. You ran for the place that you're sitting up there, and Jamie, please forgive me because you didn't run for anything. You just worked for it. But you ran for this place to sit up here. Some of the people get paid to sit up there. But you ran for that place. You wanted that position. And then you want to blame everyone else when you get blamed for stuff. Well, put on your big boy pants and sit up there, or girl pants, sorry. and deal with it. And take the responsibility. Start working with the people that have put you in that position. Taking what they say and working with it. You did a great job there for a while, putting it out on the billboard way before the meetings happened, and we sort of kind of fell off of that. Let's get back to that. That shows that you really care what the people think, that you really want the people here. Start listening to what people say when we come up here. Don't just have me come up here and say stuff and then ignore what I have to say and go on about my business and who gives a crap. That's what I wanted to talk to you today about, and hopefully you guys listen. I'm not here just to talk. I want to make this a better town, not for me, but for everyone else too. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Anyone else from the public? Seeing no other hands, I need a motion to come out of public, please.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. So we need a motion to adjourn, please.
Motion.
Need a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That's it, we're adjourned. Thank you.